What's going on, everybody? It's Joe Grotesque for the Joe Grotesque Podcast, back at you once again. Today I want to talk about something that I've touched on more than once before, and that's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, unfortunately, 2021 hasn't been that great as far as movies and TV goes for the TMNT, but I'm sure more than a handful of you have been enjoying the last Ronin IDW comic book series. I just finished part 4 the other night, and it's got me anxious to read the conclusion in part 5. So, all that out of the way, I wanted to share something with you guys that took place around 7 years ago. And it was an interview that I did with my personal hero, Kevin Eastman. There's been few people that have been quite as influential on my own artwork and just my overall concentration on entrepreneuring to do something with my artwork as Kevin Eastman. I had the pleasure of meeting him 7 years ago, and I was able to conduct an interview with him, and gosh, we probably could have gone on much longer than what we did, but of course I wanted to be respectful and considerate of his time, but it still landed us somewhere close to about 20 minutes. And I posted said interview on YouTube 7 years ago, but this was back when I only had a handful of subscribers, and it didn't quite attain the viewership that I would have hoped for. So here I am to reintroduce it to all of you in a remastered, consolidated form. I hope you enjoy. So good afternoon to you, Kevin.
Good afternoon to you as well, my friend.
So we're absolutely enthralled to have you with us today. So I guess the first thing I'd kind of like to talk about is your arrival into the comic book industry. Prior to the success of the Turtles, you were a lobster cook, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, since, I started drawing at a very young age and, was always writing, since the discovery of my hero, Jack Kirby, I was always writing and drawing my own comic stories and had, self-published a few, mini comics and done some work for, some other mini comic artists and a few, odds and ends here and there, and always had cooking jobs because I could eat at work and still have money left over to buy art supplies. So, by the time, I was working on, growing up in Maine, Memorial Day to Labor Day is where you try to make enough money to survive the winter, and with all the tourists coming in, cooking lobsters is one way to do it. And I cooked a lot of those guys.
So you're kind of my Jack Kirby. So I've always found your success to be a solid testimony to the old adage, anything's possible if you set your mind to it. And your work's certainly been an inspiration to me and has been one of the key motivators to the continuance of my own personal drive towards success as an artist. What would you say to others that dream of achieving what you've achieved?
Well, that's what's I'm finding so interesting these days, especially, whether, 30 years down the road, we've been, we got into this field, and, I use this phrase a lot. I always say, standing on the shoulders of giants. It was, guys like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and Wally Wood and Frazetta and people like that inspired me to draw from a young age. And so, when I met those guys, when we first got into the business, I was, pretty much the same way fans come up to me these days, which is astonishing to me, and I feel unworthy, so to speak, because I'd go up to Kirby and go like, "Man, you're the reason I'm in comics. You're the reason I wanted to start drawing and writing my own stories and doing that stuff." And he was so cool about it. He just, you could tell that the guy just absolutely loved what he did. He was so proud of what he did. He, made a living and provided for his family, and just enjoyed himself as well. And so, that's what inspired me. And now that, 30 years later, it's like kind of, fans coming up that have started drawing because of what they've seen, the work that Peter and I did in the Turtles. It's beyond flattering, and it's humbling, and it's pretty awesome.
How are things with the IDW series right now?
Beyond fantastic. I tell you that when I was good friends with Ted Adams from the earliest days in comics. We've known each other for probably at least 20 years, and I've just watched what IDW's been able to do and grow to when they started out in the business and what they set out to do. And when Ted got the license to do the new Turtles from Nickelodeon, he called me up and said, "Hey, we have the license for the Turtles. Are you interested in doing some covers, or would you be interested in just hearing what we're doing, what would like to do the series, and with the series, throw your 2 cents in?" so I was living in LA at the time, so I drove down and got to meet Tom Waltz, who's the head writer, and is just, to me, is just an absolute genius. He just, like us, grew up as a fan of comic books, always wanted to do that. Write his own stories, and always did it. And he was able to look at the entire Turtle universe, from the original black and white comic books to the animated series to the old movies and some of that. And he had picked the favorite things that he liked in each of those, and sort of put them all into a blender and came up with this new foundation to build a new Turtle universe, the IDW Turtle universe, and a place to tell some really fun stories, and at the same time allow to go back into some of those old animated shows and pull out characters like the Neutrinos that we brought in as, changed them up as freedom fighters, and bringing Krang in and some of the other different mutants and stuff. And I just fell in love with what he had come up with for a concept. And, so I used to go down and do brainstorming sessions, and still do on a regular basis. And I can't believe next month it'll be officially 3 years since I started working back on the Turtle series for IDW.
Oh, yeah.
Started with the layouts on the first 4 issues, and I've been doing covers. I just finished cover 37 this week. I just finished last week my second Turtles annual, which is a 48-page special issue where I was able to bring back Renat, one of the original Turtle characters from Turtles number 8, the original black and white series. And 2012, I did a 60-page annual, and I've done some fill-in issues. And literally finding out, when I came back in and started drawing the Turtles again, it was, remembering how much I missed drawing them, how much I missed telling Turtle stories, and how much I love drawing comics again as a sole profession, because, I've gone into, publishing this and building businesses and museums and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Now it's, my sole goal in life is just to go back to what got me into this business in the first place, which is writing and drawing and telling stories.
Well, that's great. So I guess one of the biggest subjects on Turtle fan minds right now is the new movie that's coming out next month. Mm-hmm. So would you like to talk about your involvement with that?
Sure. It's what's cool about the new movie is, this goes back to when Peter and I did the original animated series. The first comments that we heard from anybody when we did the first animated series was, oh my God, what have you done to our turtles? You're doing this, you're selling out, you've changed them, and you've changed the mask, and you've done this and that. Oh, it's going to be horrible, and I can't believe you guys did this. But, the whole world of fans that discovered them afterwards, they embraced them, and even some of the harder sell people, loved the movies, loved the cartoon show, and that's where we reached the biggest audience that we had. And then you look back at, the 2000 and, the Fox Kids 2000 series, it was a different style of the Turtles. You looked at, for what we did with the IDW comic, which was, we took some pretty drastic steps. I mean, having April name the Turtles, having, April go back into the lab like she did in issue 2, but she named the Turtles, a Splinter being a lab test rat as opposed to just a random rat in the sewer, and Raphael being separated out from the group. They first fell into the sewer, and the introduction of that, and that, ultimately the whole reincarnation aspect where, that we brought into the whole series. It was, some pretty dramatic changes, and, I really expected a bigger backlash. And there were a few hardcore fans that sort of, were uncomfortable with it at first, but have since, grown to love to see the spirit of how we did the stories and what we're doing with them, and have agreed. Right. When Nickelodeon started working on the new animated series, it was the same thing. We got comment after comment with, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing them CGI. They look stiff. They look cardboard. This will never work. I can't believe you ruined my Turtles. And now it's like, a #1 rated show. And even the fans that were tough sell initially said, well, it's actually really funny and it's really well done. And the martial arts is great. So I sort of apply that to what we've been doing with the new Turtle movie. And when it started into development as a live-action series 4 years ago, I started working with the original producers, Scott Mednick and Galen Walker. They brought me in to consult and work on the script and develop some of the visual. I did, I think, about 100 drawings for the initial pitch to what Paramount was developing. And then when Michael Bay took point as producer and Jonathan Eastman came in as director, Eastman called me right away and basically said, look, I want you to come in and I want you to tell me everything I need to know and everything I don't know and everything I should know about the Turtles. So we spent a bunch of time together, just talking about all things Turtles. When they brought the writers in, Andre Nemec and Josh Applebaum, I went and sat with them, I think 3 or 4 different times, just talking about what they wanted to do and, what they wanted to accomplish with the script. And even did, Paramount hired me to do concept sketches and some of the developments of the movie. From what I've seen, the script, what I've seen in the movie, including I got to do a cameo in it, I think the fans are going to come out and once they see the characters moving, acting, interacting, I think that they'll get a big kick out of it. And I think they'll get past the look, which used to be the biggest problem. But the rest of the heart and the soul is there. The story's there, the visuals are there, the action's going to be, incredibly intense and over the top. And I think that, I almost am glad in one way that they're going in with slightly lower expectations. And I hope we'll blow them away when they see what everybody's been able to do with it. So I'm looking forward to the reaction. I think it's going to be a lot more positive than people think right now.
Well, very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing movie star Kevin.
We'll see. Luckily, they don't let me speak any lines. They just have a cool cameo, and that's all. I'll leave it at that.
Let's see. I guess I'll just ask you about one more thing. Well, first of all, when I was a kid, when I was collecting the Turtles toys, the Toxic Crusaders toys came out around the same time. Mm-hmm. And I would always place my Toxic Crusaders with my Ninja Turtles, so I always had like a Trauma to Turtles connection, and then lo and behold, years later, you ended up in a couple of Trauma movies.
Yeah. Yeah, that was some fun stuff. Always been a big supporter of them, and it was sort of like one of the last big independents out there, and trying new things and different things, and I just think it's I think some of the people that started out there have gone on to real Hollywood stars, if you will. I think it was Peter Gunn. I think we end up doing like Night at the Museum, and he's written a bunch of it's a great place to train and learn and how to do that stuff. And, much like we do with the comic books, it's like we ended up getting paid to do to learn how to draw and write and tell stories, which is fantastic. And however you got to do whatever you got to do to get there. They're like what Roger Corman was back in the day. I mean, when Jack Nicholson did 15 films for Roger Corman, and how many other Jonathan Demme, even Coppola did his first movie for Corman. You got to start somewhere, and if you can make it through that, then God bless you.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to personally thank you for doing this interview with us, and it's a big day for me, especially because I would regard this as probably the biggest day of my life, next to being married to my wife.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. Well, it's like, sorry we didn't get to spend more time together down in North Carolina.
Well,
Heroes Con, that was a great show, and I think that we, like I said, my wife and I were continually blown away with the amount of people that are showing up for these events, and it's great to have the chance to spend even if it's a few minutes with each fan, just to say hi and hello and sign something. And I noticed they both commented on the fact that it seemed like a lot of people that were bringing stuff to the show to get signed were personal items that they had in their collection from the earliest days, old beat-up comic books, which I call them, well-loved, or old video games or that kind of stuff. So it was cool to see that. And then, most of the rest of the people had the new IDW books and talked about how much they've been really enjoying the new series. So
it's generations and generations at this point. So.
I'll be, another 20 years to be rolling me out in a wheelchair in my Depends and stuff, and I'll be like, hey, everybody.
And that was it. As I said, I consolidated it a little bit just to take out some of the more random stuff we talked about. And now listening back to it, not only does it seem a little bit dated because this was back before the first Michael Bay produced TMNT movie, it's also kind of embarrassing because you can tell that I'm really trying to not come off as fanboyish, but I just couldn't help myself. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview. I thank you for listening to it and giving it some of the much needed attention. I mean, there's probably dozens of Kevin Eastman interviews, but this was a really big deal to me, and it's one of my life's highlights that I'll never forget. Anyway, I hope you guys have a tremendous rest of your week, and I will catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Take care.